Hello everyone, welcome to Knowledge Skill. Today we'll be talking about Group of 7, abbreviated as G7. We'll talk about the members. Previously it was called as G8, now we call it as G7. What is the reason about it? We'll also talk about what power does it hold across the world with regard to any policy that they formulate. So let us see all the topics one by one. Let us understand what is G7 first. G7, as I've already told you, it's a shorthand or abbreviation of group of 7 countries. These 7 countries are the world's largest economies. Remember this point. Largest economies in terms of what value we are talking about, not in terms of quantity. If you know that the GDP of USA is 45 trillion, in the same way you might be aware of the GDP of India, which is around 3.1 trillion. It means what India as a whole produces goods and services of value of worth of 3.1 trillion. So whenever we talk about large economies, whenever we talk about economic size, it actually denotes the value of goods and services that a country produces. So this particular grouping is about 7 large economies, nothing but who are producing value of goods and services very huge. Okay. And these 7 countries are as follows. Remember, this point is a very important trick with regard to remembering the members of the international organization or blocks. Okay, in North America, you are having Canada and USA. Like that, minimum you have to remember which countries are there in which continent. If you remember like that, it will become easy for in the examination to eliminate the countries which are not a part of it. So G7 does not have basically any South American countries will not be there, any African countries will not be there, any Middle Eastern or Gulf countries will not be there. So these 3 continents we have to completely eliminate. If they ever ask you that in G7 Brazil is a part of G7, no, because South America is not at all represented in G7. These minimum things that you have to remember. So let us understand the number of members here in a very smart way. North America has only 3 countries are there. So in the 3 countries, 2 countries are a part of G7, Canada and USA. In Europe, we are having Germany, France, okay, which are imperial powers of new modern century, or you can say 19th century. Then in the Italy is also there and UK is also there. So 1 2 3 4 belongs to European countries, and Canada and USA is the North American countries. There are only 2 countries are there which are actually a part of the G7, Japan and Russia. Russia has been suspended. You can see here indefinitely suspended, means there is no set date is there with regard to the suspension of Russia. Basically, until unless Russia don't stop the war with the Ukraine, they are not going to give the membership back to the Russia. So right now it is indefinitely suspended from the group. That's why it till 2014 it was G8. Now it became G7. The major reason of suspension was also given in the article, in the way that Russia has annexed one of the island area of Ukraine, which is called as which is still called as Crimea. Okay, this is one of the first kind of annexation by the superpowers after the independence, after the World War II. You can see that in that way, right? So what does the G7 do? G7 members meet each year. This is very important. Annually once they meet, okay, for a summit to discuss pressing issues. Whatever the global stage issues will be there with regard to climate, with regard to global warming, with regard to taxation, with regard to international peace also, like Russia invading Ukraine. What can we do to halt that particular war? Or they can also interfere or take a decision with regard to Israel and Hamas. All that they will discuss, and they will try to coordinate policy. If one country implements one policy, other countries will follow the same suit and also implement the similar policy of that lines. International security will also be discussed, and they will also talk about economy, or the very often topic of discussions. Okay, during COVID-19 they have done a wonderful coordination by launching global pandemic radar. Global pandemic radar is a new global surveillance system of any pandemics across the world, and under this particular system, money will be given in order to carry out immunization program. This is one of such very good initiatives of G7. G7 is primarily a venue for coordination, and the group has produced various decisions of global consequences. Example is just above global pandemic radar. Ahead of this year's summit, for instance, G7 finance minister agreed that they should minimum try to implement global minimum tax of at least 15% on multinational companies. Here the concept is very important for all of you to understand. Apple company, you know that it's not a origin company of our country. So it has been in some other country, okay, USA, and Apple manufacturing units are there in India. So obviously when Apple manufactures its mobile phone in India or MacBooks in India, so whenever it sells, it pays tax to whom? It pays tax to the Indian government, because it is in India, producing in India, selling in India, or exporting, whatever it is, but everything is being done from India, so they have to pay tax to the Indian government. These countries are saying that you have been developed because of our resources. USA may be saying to the companies which are doing foreign direct investment of their own country. UK is saying the same thing, that you are now today because of the various resources, because of the various helps that we have given to you. Now you are going and establishing your companies in other countries and not paying as a tax. This is not at all fair. So that's why all the G7 countries are actually talking about that every company which is origin of it should pay some global minimum tax of the total sales that they do in other countries. It is going to be huge impact on the private companies, but let us see what does it happen. Okay, now if you see the history of G7, it's all started as an informal meeting, okay, headed by US Treasury Secretary at the time, George Schools. He was a person who actually called some of the ministers of these big countries to just join for a discussion in the form of a library group in 1970s. Library group, just come and let us have a discussion. Okay, later on what happened, these Germany and France secretaries who joined this particular meeting, later on they went on to become German and French president. Later on the process of continuously meeting started over a period of time. Okay, and Japan joined in 1975, and the members, original participants who actually were the members in the library group, went on to become French president, German president, and the process of continuously going meeting together has been till date it is very much relevant. Canada, Italy joined later and it became group of 7. Remember this point. It has to be actually group of 8, because you know that Russia has been indefinitely suspended from this group. So this is how the origin of the group 7 took place. Thanks a lot for listening to me. Do subscribe to the channel and share all to your friends. Bye bye. Have a nice day. Take care.